could you imagine this? Or would you, or could you imagine this? Or would you, or could you imagine a world with no cancer or AIDS? That means every 3 seconds a life wouldn't go to waste. Could you imagine no diseases or germs? Then how would we get days off school, college and work? Let's just imagine if the sun stopped burning. Would people lay half naked in the cold applying rain tan lotion? Imagine God couldn't be bothered so he called in sick like 9/11 when the devil must have covered his shift. Imagine this, it's quite sad to say, but if a smile was a frown, this world would be a happy place. Could you imagine if we live with no laws? Then what would all these gangsters have to brag about breaking? Imagine a day when we can look at the news and not see somebody missing, stabbed, dead or abused. Look, I just want you all to see things my way, because I'd love it if you join my imagination. Let's imagine London didn't rain for 2 years and people out here died from the stifling heat. Other countries appeal to the world, but who cares? The temperature is reaching up to 40 degrees. Imagine turning your taps and no water, and every time you did want a drink in the shower, you had to walk from your house to the Thames with a bucket and back. Now open your eyes and see that's how they live in Africa. Imagine that. Well, would you or could you imagine that? Would you or could you imagine that? Well, would you or could you imagine that? Would you or could you imagine no descriptive language? How would I say when I write? I feel like my pen is making love to the page. You see, this is a world with no music. I think we'd all go crazy. Imagine no fame and no idols. People like Madonna could work in the same place you or I do. With no celebrity status, magazines on the shelf would be full of empty pages. I wonder where my inspiration comes from, and what happens to my ideas when they're forgotten. Imagine Mark Chapman didn't listen to the voice in his mind. John Lennon might be here to sing this song with me tonight. Imagine that. Or would you or could you imagine that? Or would you or could you imagine that? Or would you or could you imagine that? Or would you or could you imagine this? Or would you or could you imagine that? Listen to me. Or would you or could you imagine that? The only reason I want anyone to see things my way is because I'd love it if you joined my imagination. Thank you very much.
Hey, that was wonderful. That deserves a bigger applause than that. Come on, man. What's going on? Yo! That was wonderful. Whoa, that got deep, yo.